The darkness of space lit up like a festival of death. One by one, massive ships appeared where nothing had been before. They came in perfect lines, their metal hulls gleaming under the distant light of Earth's sun. Each ship was bigger than a city. Each one carried enough firepower to burn a continent. Admiral Vex Thanor stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final ships take their positions. He counted them in his mind, just as he had done 17 times before. 8,899 warships, the largest fleet the Korthak Empire had ever assembled. "Sir, all ships report ready," his aide announced, her voice tight with excitement. Vex Thanor nodded slowly, his 4 eyes focused on the small blue planet ahead. Earth looked so peaceful from here, so defenseless. The humans had no idea what was coming for them. "Open a channel to the human world," he ordered. The view screen flickered to life. Within seconds, frightened human faces appeared. Men and women in military uniforms sat around a table, their skin pale and their eyes wide. Vex Thanor had seen that look before. It was the look of a species that knew it was about to die. "People of Earth," Vex Thanor began, his voice calm and cold. "I am Admiral Vex Thanor of the Korthak Empire. You see our fleet above your world. You know why we are here?" One of the humans, an older man with gray hair, leaned forward. We want to negotiate. Surely we can reach some agreement." Vex Thanor almost smiled. They always wanted to negotiate. "There is nothing to discuss. You have something we need. Your world will serve the Empire. You may surrender now and live as slaves or resist and die as fools. You have one of your hours to decide." The human general's face went red. "You think you can just take our world? We'll fight you with everything we have." "With what?" Vex Thanor gestured to his fleet. "Your primitive weapons? Your tiny ships? We have conquered 17 star systems, 17 worlds that thought they could resist us. Their bones now fertilize Korthak gardens." The transmission ended. Vex Thanor turned away from the screen, already bored. This would be over by tomorrow. His ships would glass the major cities, break their military, and the survivors would beg for mercy. It was always the same, but something was happening in the space around Earth. Human ships were moving. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "the human fleet is repositioning." Vex Thanor looked at the display. Earth's pathetic navy was indeed moving, but not in retreat. The small human ships were forming tight clusters, dozens of vessels pressed close together. It made no tactical sense. Grouped like that, one of his plasma cannons could destroy 10 ships with a single shot. "What are they doing?" his aide asked. "Something stupid," Vex Thanor replied. "Ready the forward batteries, we'll end this quickly." More human ships joined the formation. Hundreds of them now, packed so tightly together they looked like metal clouds. Military vessels, cargo ships, even civilian craft, all moving into the same suicidal formations. The communications officer looked confused. "Sir, we're picking up massive signal traffic from the human fleet. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "What are they saying?" I'm not sure, sir. The translation is unclear. Something about Protocol 7 and the garden dies with us." Vex Thanor frowned. In all his years of conquest, he had never heard phrases like that. Usually the defending species screamed for mercy or cursed their attackers. They didn't speak in riddles. "Sir, the human formations are complete," the tactical officer reported. "They're holding position between us and their world." On the main display, Vex Thanor could see the human fleet. It looked pitifully small compared to his armada, maybe 3,000 ships total, most of them barely larger than his shuttlecraft. They hung in space like tiny stars waiting. "All ships, prepare to engage," Vex Thanor ordered. "Let's show these humans what happens to those who defy the Empire." The Korthak fleet began to move forward. 8,899 ships of war, each one a masterpiece of destruction. Their weapons powered up, energy readings climbing into the deadly range. The humans would have minutes to live, maybe less. But the human ships weren't running. They weren't even trying to spread out to minimize damage. They just waited in their tight formations, as if they wanted to make the slaughter easier. "Human fleet is powering weapons," the tactical officer announced. "But sir, their energy signatures are strange." "Strange how?" "They're not just charging weapons, sir. Every ship is showing massive power buildups in their reactor cores. It's like they're preparing to overload." Vex Thanor felt the first small stirring of unease. Overloading reactors was suicide. It would destroy the ships doing it. Why would an entire fleet prepare for self-destruction? "Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet," the communications officer announced. "Put it through." The screen showed a human woman in a military uniform. She was young, maybe 30 cycles old, with short dark hair and fierce eyes. Unlike the politicians from before, she didn't look afraid. She looked angry. "Admiral Vex Thanor," she said, her voice steady and cold. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen, commanding the Earth Defense Fleet. You want our world? Come and take it. But know this, we've spent generations preparing for this day. Every human ship, every station, every rock in this system has been turned into a weapon. You'll have your victory, alien, but it will cost you everything." The transmission ended. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Vex Thanor laughed. "Brave words from a dead woman. All ships open fire. Let's end this madness." The order went out across the fleet. 8,899 warships unleashed their fury upon the human defenders. Space erupted in light and death, but something was wrong. The humans weren't dying the way they should. The first wave of Korthak plasma fire lit up space like angry red stars. Hundreds of energy beams struck the human formations, each shot carrying enough power to vaporize a small moon. Vex Thanor watched with satisfaction as the beams found their targets. But the explosions were wrong. When human ships died, they didn't just disappear in flashes of light. They erupted like miniature suns. Each destroyed vessel released a ball of nuclear fire that spread outward, consuming everything nearby. The tight formations that had seemed so foolish suddenly made terrible sense. What in the void? Vex Thanor's tactical officer gasped. A single human destroyer had been hit by Korthak fire. As it died, its reactor didn't just fail, it exploded with the force of a stellar bomb. The blast caught 3 nearby human ships, which also exploded. Those explosions triggered more ships to detonate. Within seconds, an entire formation of 50 human vessels had become a chain reaction of nuclear death, and it was heading straight for the Korthak front line. "Evasive maneuvers," Vex Thanor shouted, but it was too late. The expanding wall of nuclear fire slammed into 12 Korthak cruisers. Their shields, designed to stop plasma beams and particle cannons, were useless against the raw atomic fury. The proud warships simply vanished. Their metal hulls turned to vapor in an instant. "Impossible," Vex Thanor whispered, but it was happening again and again. All across the battle zone, human ships were dying in carefully planned explosions. Each death triggered more deaths, creating waves of destruction that carved through the Korthak fleet like a blade through soft flesh. "Sir, we're reading massive casualties," his aide reported, her voice shaking. "Forward Squadron 7 is completely gone. Squadron 12 has lost half its ships. The humans are using their own vessels as weapons." Vex Thanor stared at the tactical display. In just 10 minutes of fighting, he had lost over 200 ships. The humans were dying too, but each human death cost him multiple vessels. It was madness. It was impossible. No species fought like this. "Pull back the fleet," he ordered. "Reform at maximum weapons range." But the humans weren't finished. Even as the Korthak ships tried to retreat, more human formations began their deadly charges. Small fighters and cargo ships packed with explosives raced toward the alien fleet. They moved too fast for the heavy Korthak weapons to track. "Intercept those ships," Vex Thanor commanded. Korthak point defense systems opened fire, filling space with streams of energy. Some human ships died before reaching their targets, but for every ship destroyed, 2 more got through. They slammed into Korthak hulls and detonated, their deaths taking entire sections of alien warships with them. "Sir, the humans are broadcasting again." the communications officer announced. "Let me hear it." The voice that came through the speakers was calm, almost cheerful. It was an older human man, speaking from what looked like a command center deep underground. "Attention, Korthak Fleet. This is General Morrison, Earth Defense Command. I hope you're enjoying your stay in our solar system. What you're experiencing now is just the beginning. Every human ship was equipped with enhanced nuclear reactors and dead man switches. Every captain has been trained since childhood to make their death count. You wanted to conquer us? Congratulations. You get to find out what happens when you attack a species that has spent 300 years preparing to die fighting." The transmission ended. Around the bridge, Korthak officers stared at each other in horror. 300 years of preparation? What kind of species spent centuries planning their own destruction? "Sir, incoming data from Intelligence Division," his aide said. "They've been analyzing human transmissions." "Sir, the humans, they've been expecting this invasion for generations. Their entire military doctrine is built around something they call mutually assured extinction." Vex Thanor felt cold fear creeping up his spine. In 17 previous conquests, no species had ever been prepared for their arrival. The Korthak always had the advantage of surprise. But Earth had been waiting. They had known this day would come, and they had prepared for it. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked quietly. 437 confirmed destroyed, sir. Another 200 damaged. The humans have lost approximately 800 vessels, nearly 500 ships gone, and they hadn't even reached Earth yet. At this rate, his fleet would be cut in half before they could land a single soldier on the human world. But stopping now would mean admitting defeat to a primitive species. The Empire would never forgive such shame. "Continue the advance," Vex Thanor ordered. "All ships maintain maximum dispersion. Do not let the humans group their explosions." The Korthak fleet moved forward again, but now they spread out across thousands of kilometers of space. If the humans wanted to use their deaths as weapons, at least they would only kill one ship at a time. But the humans adapted quickly. Instead of forming tight groups, they began attacking in waves. Hundreds of small ships would charge the Korthak, lines from different directions. The aliens could not shoot them all down. Some always got through. Each human pilot seemed to know exactly where to strike. They didn't aim for the heavily armored sections of Korthak ships. Instead, they targeted weapon systems, engines, and command centers, places where a single explosion could cripple an entire vessel. "Sir, they know our ship designs," the tactical officer reported with growing panic. "They're hitting our weak points with surgical precision." "How is that possible?" "Unknown, sir. But every attack targets critical systems. They've studied us, sir. They know exactly how to hurt us." Hour after hour, the battle continued. The Korthak fleet pushed deeper into the solar system, leaving a trail of wreckage behind them. But for every kilometer they advanced, they paid in blood and metal. Human ships kept coming, waves of them, each pilot ready to die if it meant taking an alien ship with them. Vex Thanor watched his mighty armada slowly bleed to death. These weren't soldiers he was fighting. These were fanatics, a species that had turned suicide into an art form. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from several of our ship captains," his aide whispered. "They want to withdraw from the system." Vex Thanor almost agreed. Almost. But the Empire was watching. Failure here would mean his own death, and the death of every captain who retreated. There was only one way forward. "Ignore the cowards," he said. "We continue to Earth, whatever the cost." But deep inside, Vex Thanor was beginning to understand that the cost might be everything. The asteroid belt should have been empty space and floating rocks. Instead, it had become a maze of death. Admiral Vex Thanor stared at his tactical display in growing horror. What his sensors showed made no sense. The asteroids weren't just floating randomly anymore. They had been moved, arranged, positioned with mathematical precision to create narrow corridors through the belt. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the asteroid field," his science officer reported. "The readings are unusual." "Define unusual." "The asteroids themselves are giving off power readings, sir, as if they've been hollowed out and filled with machinery." Vex Thanor's four eyes narrowed. The humans had turned their asteroid belt into a weapon. But how? Moving asteroids required enormous amounts of energy. The kind of engineering project that would take decades, maybe. Centuries. How long? He asked quietly. Sir? How long would it take to move all these asteroids into these positions? The science officer's face went pale. At least 200 years, sir. Maybe more. They would have had to start this project long before they even knew we existed. 200 years. The humans had been preparing for this invasion since before the Korthak Empire had even discovered their solar system. They had looked up at the stars and known that someday something would come to destroy them. So they had prepared. Sir, we have to go through the belt to reach Earth, his navigator said. There's no way around it. The corridors are the only safe passage. Vexthanor knew it was a trap. But he also knew he had no choice. His fleet had already lost over 800 ships fighting through the outer system. Turning back now would mean facing the Emperor's wrath. Death was certain either way. At least this way, he might still claim victory. Take us into the belt, he ordered. All ships, maximum alert, weapons ready. The surviving 6,000 Korthak warships entered the asteroid corridors in single file. The passages were just wide enough for their largest vessels, with walls of rock on either side. It felt like flying through a canyon made of stone and metal. For the first few minutes, nothing happened. The fleet moved deeper into the belt, following the winding corridors that seemed to lead toward Earth. Vexthanor began to hope that maybe the asteroids were just positioned to slow them down, not destroy them. Then the first mine exploded. It had been disguised as a small chunk of rock. No, bigger than a fighter craft. But when it detonated, the explosion was powerful enough to vaporize a Korthak cruiser and damage 2 others. Pieces of the destroyed ship flew outward, striking nearby asteroids. And those asteroids exploded too. Evasive action! Vexthanor shouted, but there was nowhere to go. The corridors were too narrow for his large ships to maneuver. They could only move forward or backward, and behind them, more explosions were starting. The asteroid belt had become a chain reaction of destruction. Each explosion triggered sensors in nearby rocks, setting off more hidden mines. What had seemed like a safe passage was revealed as an elaborate trap, with his entire fleet caught inside. Sir, we're losing ships throughout the formation, his aide reported. The explosions are spreading faster than we can retreat. But retreat was impossible anyway. Behind them, the corridors were collapsing as exploding asteroids crashed into each other. The only way out was forward, deeper into the trap. All ships full speed ahead, Vexthanor commanded. Get us through this maze before it kills us all. The Korthak fleet raced through the twisting passages, chased by waves of destruction. Some ships made it through sections before the mines exploded. Others were caught in the blasts and turned to scrap metal. The asteroid belt became a graveyard of twisted wreckage and floating debris, but the humans weren't finished with them yet. As the surviving ships reached the inner edge of the belt, new threats appeared. What Vexthanor had thought were dead, space stations came to life. Hidden weapons emerged from concealed bunkers built into the largest asteroids, railguns, particle beams, and missile launchers that had been waiting silently for years. Sir, we're being targeted by automated defense systems, the tactical officer called out. Hundreds of them. They're built into the asteroids themselves. The hidden weapons opened fire all at once. Streams of projectiles and energy beams crisscrossed the space around the fleet. The Korthak ships found themselves in a shooting gallery, with enemies on all sides and no room to maneuver. Return fire, Vexthanor ordered. Destroy those weapon platforms. But the human weapons were protected by the asteroids themselves. To destroy the guns, the Korthak had to blast through thousands of tons of rock. And each time they did, more hidden weapons were revealed underneath. The humans had turned every asteroid into a fortress. Sir, incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. The face that appeared on screen was that of an elderly human woman. She sat in what looked like a command center carved from solid rock. Behind her, dozens of technicians worked at control stations. Welcome to the belt, Admiral, she said with a cold smile. I'm Commander Parks, Asteroid Defense Command. I've been waiting here for 40 years just hoping someone like you would show up. My grandfather started building these defenses. My father continued the work, and now I get to see them used. She gestured to screens showing the battle raging. Outside, every rock you see has been prepared, every corridor mapped, every explosion calculated. We've had 2 centuries to turn this belt into the perfect killing ground, and you flew right into it. The transmission ended. Around Vex Thanor, his bridge crew stared in shock. 40 years. This woman had spent her entire adult life waiting in this asteroid field, just for the chance to kill them. Sir, we've lost another 300 ships in the belt, his aide reported. The automated defenses are targeting our engines and life support systems. They're trying to disable us, not destroy us. Vex Thanor realized with horror what that meant. The humans weren't just trying to kill his fleet. They were trying to capture it. Disabled ships would be helpless, floating targets for more human attacks. All remaining ships, ignore the defenses, he commanded. Full power to engines. Get us out of this killing field now. The surviving Korthak vessels burned their engines at maximum power, racing through the final corridors of the asteroid maze. Behind them, explosions continued to light up space as more hidden mines detonated. The belt had become a storm of fire and debris. When the last ships finally broke free of the asteroid field, Vex Thanor counted his losses. Of the 8,899 ships that had entered the solar system, fewer than 4,000 remained. More than half his fleet was gone, destroyed by human traps and weapons, but ahead of them Earth hung in space like a blue jewel. The final prize. Surely the humans had exhausted their tricks. Surely there could be nothing left to stop them now. Then, his sensors detected the gravity mines. Hidden throughout Earth's orbital space, devices that could create artificial gravity wells strong enough to crush a starship. More traps. More weapons. More proof that humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment. Vex Thanor felt despair creeping into his hearts. These humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to ensure that victory would cost their enemies everything. Earth hung before them like a blue and white marble, beautiful and deadly. Admiral Vex Thanor's remaining fleet had been reduced to less than 3,000 ships. What had started as the mightiest armada in Korthak history was now a broken, bleeding force limping toward its final objective. But they had made it. Earth was within reach. Sir, we're detecting massive energy buildups across the planet's surface, his science officer reported. Every major city, every military installation, even civilian areas are showing extreme power readings. Vex Thanor studied the scans of Earth. The planet looked wrong. Where cities should be, his sensors showed fortress complexes. Where farms should exist, there were weapon platforms. The entire world had been turned into a military base. How many people live down there? He asked. Approximately 8 billion humans, sir, but the strange thing is, most of them seem to be underground. The surface populations are much smaller than expected. 8 billion humans. All of them apparently willing to die rather than surrender. Vex Thanor felt a chill run through his body. He was about to invade a world where every single inhabitant was a potential enemy. Begin orbital bombardment, he ordered. Reduce their major cities to ash. Break their will to fight. The surviving Korthak ships opened fire on Earth. Plasma beams and particle cannons rained down from space, striking military targets and population centers. The weapons that had burned the cities of 17 worlds turned their fury on humanity's home. But Earth fought back. The planet's surface erupted in defensive fire. Massive railguns emerged from hidden silos, launching projectiles the size of buildings into space. Energy weapons that had been disguised as mountains opened fire, their beams powerful enough to cut through Korthak armor like paper. Sir, the humans have turned their entire planet into a weapon, his tactical officer said in amazement. Every continent has hidden defense systems. They're firing from civilian areas, from natural landmarks, even from the ocean floors. Vex Thanor watched as another of his cruisers was destroyed by a beam that emerged from what looked like a peaceful lake. The humans had spent centuries preparing not just their space defenses, but their world itself. Sir, incoming transmission from the planet, the communications officer announced. The face that appeared was that of a middle-aged human man in a military uniform. He sat in what looked like a command bunker deep underground with concrete walls and harsh lighting. "Admiral Vexthanor," the man said calmly. "I'm General Harrison, Earth Defense Command. Congratulations on reaching our world. You've accomplished something no alien force has ever done before. You've made it all the way to Earth with part of your fleet intact." Vexthanor snarled, "Surrender now, human, and some of your people might live to serve the Empire." General Harrison smiled. "I'm afraid you misunderstand the situation, Admiral. We're not here to surrender. We're here to show you what happens when you attack a species that has spent 300 years preparing to make our deaths count." The general gestured to something off-screen. "You see, we learned something important from studying your previous conquests. You always follow the same pattern: orbital bombardment, then ground invasion, then occupation. So we prepared for each stage." As if responding to his words, the planet's surface began to change. What Vexthanor had thought were cities started to move. Entire sections of continents shifted and rearranged themselves. Mountains split open to reveal hidden weapons. Oceans drained away to expose underwater fortresses. "Every city on Earth is mobile, Admiral," Harrison continued. "Every building can be relocated underground in minutes. Every civilian shelter doubles as a military bunker, and every single human on this planet has been trained since childhood to fight." Vexthanor stared at the tactical display as Earth transformed before his eyes. The peaceful world was revealing itself to be a massive fortress planet, with defenses that made his remaining fleet look pathetic. "Continue the bombardment," he ordered desperately. "Burn everything. Leave nothing standing." The Korthak ships poured fire onto Earth's surface, but for every target they destroyed, 2 more appeared. The humans seemed to have unlimited backup systems, hidden weapons, and underground facilities. Worse, the planet itself was fighting back in ways that made no sense. Artificial earthquakes began shaking Korthak landing sites. The magnetic field around Earth suddenly intensified, frying the electronics of any ship that got too close. Even the weather seemed to turn against them, as massive storms appeared from nowhere to destroy incoming shuttles. "Sir, they've weaponized their planet's magnetic field," his science officer reported in panic. "Our ships are losing power if they descend too far into the atmosphere. They're using their own world as a weapon." "How is that possible?" "They've built massive electromagnetic generators at the planet's core, sir. They can control the magnetic field like a weapon. Any electronic system that gets close enough will be destroyed." Vexthanor felt his hopes crumbling. Even if he could land troops on Earth, how could they fight a population of 8 billion humans who had been preparing for this war for centuries? How could he occupy a world where every grain of sand might be a hidden weapon? "Sir, we're receiving reports from our landing forces," his aide said quietly. "The few shuttles that made it to the surface, they're not responding anymore." "What happened to them?" "Unknown, sir. They landed in what appeared to be empty fields. Then, nothing. No communications, no distress signals. They just disappeared." On the main screen, General Harrison was still talking. "Every landing zone on Earth has been prepared, Admiral. Underground facilities that can swallow entire armies, gravity traps that can crush your heaviest vehicles, and 8 billion humans who would rather die fighting than live as slaves." The general leaned forward, his eyes hard as steel. "You came here expecting an easy conquest. Instead, you found a species that has turned their own extinction into a weapon. Every human who dies will take as many of your soldiers with them as possible. Every city you destroy will trigger more defenses. Every victory you claim will cost you more than defeat." Vexthanor realized with growing horror that even if he conquered Earth, he would have nothing left to hold it with. His fleet was already reduced to a fraction of its original size. His ground forces would be consumed by a planet-wide war against 8 billion fanatics. And then the final trap revealed itself. Deep beneath Earth's surface, massive fusion reactors began to overload. The humans were preparing to turn their entire world into a bomb. If they couldn't have their planet, no one could. "Sir," his science officer whispered, "they're going to destroy the entire planet. Everyone on it. They'd rather die than be conquered." Vexthanor stared at Earth in absolute horror. He had come here to conquer a world. Instead, He had found a species so committed to resistance that they would destroy everything rather than surrender. The humans weren't just willing to die fighting. They were willing to take their entire world with them. The fusion reactors deep in Earth's core reached critical levels. Admiral Vexthaner watched his sensors in disbelief as the entire planet prepared to become a star. The humans were going to destroy their own world rather than let him have it. "Sir, we need to retreat," his aide said, her voice shaking. "If that planet explodes, the blast will destroy everything in this system." But Vexthaner couldn't move. He stared at the tactical display showing his broken fleet. Less than 3,000 ships remained from his mighty armada, barely enough to defend a single world, let alone continue the Empire's expansion. He had won. Earth would be his. But the victory had cost him everything. "Admiral," came General Harrison's voice from the planet below. "I hope you're satisfied. You wanted our world. Now you can have it, all of it. Every atom will be yours when it becomes a cloud of radioactive gas." The countdown had begun. Massive displays across Earth's surface showed the time remaining. 10 minutes until total planetary destruction. "This is madness," Vexthanor whispered. "Your people will all die." "Yes," Harrison replied simply. 8 billion humans will die, but we'll take your fleet with us. And when the other species in this galaxy hear what happened here, they'll know the truth. They'll know that the mighty Korthak Empire needed 9,000 ships to destroy one human world. And even then, we made you pay for every inch." Vexthanor felt his world crumbling around him. This wasn't how conquest was supposed to work. Species were supposed to surrender when faced with overwhelming force. They were supposed to beg for mercy, not prepare for mutual annihilation. "Sir, we have to leave," his navigator urged. "The blast radius will extend beyond the outer planets." But Vexthanor knew there was no escape from what the humans had done to him. Even if his ship survived, what could he tell the Emperor? That he had lost 2/3 of the greatest fleet in Korthak history to conquer a single world? That the humans had fought so hard that victory was meaningless? The Empire would blame him for the disaster. Other subject races would hear about Earth and begin to wonder if they too could resist. The careful balance of fear that held the Empire together would crumble. 8 minutes, Harrison announced calmly. "I want you to understand something, Admiral. We've been preparing for this day for 300 years. Not just the weapons and defenses you've seen. We've been preparing our people. Every human child learns the story of Earth's last stand. They learn that sometimes the only way to win is to make sure your enemy's victory costs them everything." Vexthanor's communications officer spoke up quietly. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Other species are watching this battle. They're cheering for the humans." On his secondary screens, Vexthanor could see alien faces from dozens of worlds, species that had been conquered by the Empire, forced to serve as slaves and workers. They were watching Earth's final moments with hope in their eyes. 6 minutes, Harrison continued. "But I have something else to tell you, Admiral. Something that should terrify you more than our planet's destruction." The human general's face filled the main screen. Behind him, Vexthanor could see other humans working calmly at their stations. None of them looked afraid. They looked determined. "Earth isn't humanity's only world," Harrison said quietly. "We've had 3 centuries to spread across the galaxy. Colonies on distant worlds, ships traveling between the stars, research stations in remote systems. They've all been watching this battle. They've all been learning." Vexthanor felt ice in his veins. "Impossible. Our scouts would have found them." "Your scouts found what we wanted them to find," Harrison replied. "Empty systems. Dead worlds. We learned long ago how to hide from species like yours. But we've been out there, Admiral. Watching, waiting, learning everything we could about the Korthak Empire." The general gestured to something off-screen. "Right now, in 50 different star systems, human colonies are implementing what we learned here today. They're turning asteroids into weapons, building defense networks, preparing their own versions of Protocol 7. 4 minutes, came an automated voice from somewhere in Harrison's bunker. "But here's the part that should really worry you," Harrison continued. We've made contact with other species, the ones you conquered, the ones you enslaved. We've been teaching them what we learned, showing them how to fight back, how to make their deaths count. On the tactical display, Vex Thanner could see the first signs of Earth's approaching destruction. The planet's crust was beginning to crack as the fusion reactors overloaded. Soon the entire world would become a miniature star. "Sir, we're detecting unusual activity in the Viridian system," his science officer reported with growing panic. "The slave colonies they're implementing similar defenses to what we saw here. The Altair system too, sir," another officer added. "The conquered species there have begun moving asteroids." Vexithanor realized with horror what the humans had done. They hadn't just prepared Earth for this invasion. They had turned their defeat into a weapon that would spread across the galaxy. Every species that saw Earth's final stand would learn that resistance was possible. 2 minutes, Harrison announced. "Admiral, when you return to your empire, you'll have to explain how humanity turned your greatest victory into your greatest defeat. You'll have to tell them that the humans taught the galaxy how to fight back." Around the bridge, Korthak officers stared in shock at reports coming in from across their territory. Slave worlds were rising in rebellion. Conquered species were building weapons. The empire that had taken centuries to build was starting to crack. 1 minute, Harrison said. "I want to leave you with one final thought, Admiral. You came here to destroy us. Instead, you've made us immortal. Every species in this galaxy will remember Earth. They'll remember that a small blue world made gods bleed." The countdown reached 0. Earth's surface split open like a flower of fire. The fusion reactors at the planet's core detonated simultaneously, turning the entire world into a ball of nuclear fire. The explosion expanded outward, consuming space stations, orbital defenses, and the few remaining Korthak ships that had gotten too close. But the blast wasn't just destruction. Hidden in the explosion were thousands of small pods, shot out at incredible speeds. Each one contained human data, human stories, human knowledge about how to fight the Korthak Empire. They scattered across the galaxy like seeds of rebellion, Vexithanners. Surviving ships fled the expanding fireball, but they couldn't escape what Earth had done. The human world was gone, but its message would live forever. In the ashes of their planet, humanity had created something far more dangerous than weapons. They had created hope. Years later, when alien archaeologists dug through the ruins of what had once been Earth, they found a final message carved in metal deep underground. It said simply, "This was just one world. We have colonies among the stars, and they have been watching. They have learned. Come for them and discover what we've built while you were busy counting your victories here." The Korthak Empire never recovered from the Battle of Earth. Not because they had lost too many ships, but because they had lost something far more important. They had lost the fear that kept their subjects in line. Across the galaxy, species that had been slaves for generations began to whisper, "If the humans of Earth could make the mighty Korthak bleed, what might they accomplish?" The rebellion that started with Earth's destruction spread from world to world, system to system. In the end, humanity's greatest victory wasn't saving their world. It was losing it in a way that inspired the galaxy to fight back. Earth had become a mass grave for Korthak dreams of conquest, and from its ashes rose the fire of universal rebellion.